All right, we're going to start over right from there. Here we go. You ready?
This is Beach Talk Radio.
Just pretend I didn't say anything if you're here.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Oh, isn't that hair fabulous? Broadcasting live from the new hotspot on Fort Myers Beach. Wahoo! Willies! It's time for another exciting award-winning episode of Beach Talk Radio. Here are your humble hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
So let me explain what happened. I'm not even going to tell this.
No, let me just say, let you know what's coming. Literally every week we do this. We do this every week. He does it multiple times in a week. He has hours to prepare and do this. And yet, most weeks we seem to be hitting a wall or a problem.
See, what I did was there's a mute button on the StreamYard, and Andy was sitting here talking and Kim was talking. So I, when you have a microphone close by, you never know what's going to be live. Like what happened at 7:30 this morning. A story I'm not going to tell again, but so that's what happened. I muted it and I unmuted it, and I thank you guys for picking up on that. But anyway, what I did say was Andy Hyatt is the town manager. A big hand for Andy. What I did say that you didn't hear is he's on a 10-year contract with a 20-year option, which is, I just made that up, but we hope he's here for a long time. It's his first interview on the show, about 90 days in. So, Andy, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. And what I heard from that was blame the new guy.
No. So what we like to do, Andy, with our guests at the beginning is ask a few personal questions before we get into the professional questions.
Okay.
So what is your favorite TV show when you were growing up?
Growing up, Batman.
What was your favorite movie of all time?
Right. Outlaw Josie Wells.
Oh, very nice.
He's quick.
Starring who?
You're quick with the responses. That's good.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other people.
Can't be a family member. Most interesting person you know in your life. Not so quick with that one.
Yeah, really. That's when you said can't be a family member. Wow, that's tough.
You want to phone a friend?
Interesting, memorable,
No,
impressive.
Because I think the most interesting would be my T-ball coach, and who ended up being my high school baseball coach, who was born with deformities. He had one leg and arms at the elbows and was this tall.
Wow.
And to see, and I'm getting emotional now. He's no longer with us, but to see the things he could do, I remember him kicking one of our players when I was a sophomore freshman. It scared the crap out of me because the guy was 6'4", 6'3", and he kicked him in the tail with his good leg. So, Bill Talley.
Okay.
Yeah, great guy. Great. Yeah, absolutely.
On that note, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
We appreciate you coming on.
So I'm going to segue now to the question. No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Go ahead.
So we're going to segue now. What is your most embarrassing moment?
Probably a lot of those because I'm the fifth of 5 children. I have 3 older sisters and an older brother.
Oh boy!
So there's probably a lot, but as I sit here and think, and I guess because it sticks in my mind and it really comes
Yes.
out. I remember in the first grade we had moved from Atlanta, Georgia to Cleveland, Tennessee, and if anybody knows where Cleveland, Tennessee is, it's near Chattanooga. It's in East Tennessee, foothills of the Smoky Mountains, beautiful place, but it was a rural area at the time, about 15,000 people. Now it's about 80,000 people. It's really grown. It's part of Chattanooga. But I used to walk to school. It probably seemed like miles, but it was probably only from here to the building there. But I remember I'd go home for lunch, and every Friday or every whatever, so often we'd get ice cream at school, and you'd get it back in the room. They want you, and I think it was a nickel or whatever. So I had my nickel that day. I went home for lunch, and when I got back, my ice cream fudgesicle, by the way, was on my desk and it had melted. I remember being so I guess my wife uses the word mortified, but I guess I didn't know that word. I'm just embarrassed that I had went and threw it in the trash can. I remember I have a very vivid imagination about a lot of things growing up, and that's one of them. But but I love ice cream. He can tell you, I always want to get ice cream for the staff. Ice cream fixes everything.
Oh boy.
Well, I love ice cream too, but
All right. Just so you know, it's only an hour show, so some of your stories we'll need to condense them down a
no,
little
you
bit.
started off great. You were like boom, boom, boom.
All I heard was something about melted ice cream, but the last question on this is
I was waiting for you to say, and then I slipped and
Yeah.
fell, and my
Oh,
pants fell
no,
down,
it
or
was-
who is your favorite band of all time?
Oh, the Eagles.
All right, as long as it's not Pink Floyd, that's all that matters. So
I think you were picking on the Eagles last week or the week before.
Was I?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
think
don't
you made
remember
some
that.
derogatory.
oh no, it wasn't the
comments,
Eagles. It was the Don Felder guy. I didn't realize that he's he's the lead singer of the Eagles or something. He's going to be at the he's the drummer of
He
the
was
Eagles
one
or
of the
something.
guitarists with the Eagles.
Well,
that
he's going to be one of
kicked
the
out.
performers at. Oh, he got kicked out at the Heroes concert.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kicked to the curb.
All right, Andy. So it's been 90 days on the job, a little more than that. So
Can't you let me ask it?
go right ahead.
So it's been about 3 months now. How are things going, and how are you acclimating to the town manager's position here in Fort Myers Beach?
15 weeks, almost 15 weeks. Tomorrow will end the 15th week. It does seem like it's a little longer than that. And only because I remember during the interview, somebody asked me a question, and I don't want to be, if I start to get too long, just pour cold water on my head. We started, there was a question, what are you going to do your first 100 days? Well, I felt like, and any town manager, in my opinion, is a town manager, city manager. They know that part, that every town to a degree functions very similar. This was unique. And I said that I have about 3 to 4 weeks to really catch up on things. Obviously, a lot of things in the news being on the East Coast when this happened. We actually sent police officers over to help, so we were engaged, but from afar. But I knew coming in that there was a lot of things I had to catch up on quickly. And so I think that has helped me get to this point, and bring some of the staff have been critical. The elected officials have been critical. A lot of our fine citizens have been instrumental in sharing information with me. Very, very good information. I always like to learn things, whether it's positive or negative. We try to learn from it, but things have been going pretty well. I think we're off to a good start. Got a lot of things ahead, a lot of things got our hands in now. And so hopefully we'll see a lot of movement and with town hall coming down starting yesterday, you see some movement as far as the government's concerned, but other things I know, and some hot button topics that obviously I'm sure I'll talk about in a little bit, but yes, we are.
And for anybody that doesn't know, you're kind of like the disaster town manager now, because you dealt with the building collapse in South Florida, and then you come to town. You got to control your own mind.
You turned it off. Not that you're a disaster, but you have.
So you have experience with that, is what I meant. You went from something that was catastrophic to something that really destroyed a community.
Correct. I just go back to that just a minute, if I may. June 21st, 2021, when I got that call at 1:30 in the morning that we had a building collapse. I lived in a high rise, and the first thing I said, my building collapsed, because you're not awake, you're answering the phone. No, we got a building collapse with multiple fatalities.
Tell people where you.
Okay.
Yes.
I was formerly the town manager of Surfside, Florida, in Miami-Dade County, just north of Miami Beach. The Champlain Tower South collapsed at 1:24 in the morning on June 21st. June 24th. And so we had an opportunity, right? And you don't ever go into situations. Actually, to kind of paraphrase it a little bit, the town was quiet. I mean, our commission, they really argued and fought with each other, and they left staff alone, and we just kind of did our thing. But this just thrust us into a completely different spotlight. I remember coming down, and Collins Avenue is A1A. It's the main drag coming north out of Miami Beach, and it's 24 hours a day, traffic. I remember coming down out of my building and getting out in the street and focusing on that direction, and it was quiet. There was nothing, no sound. There was no cars coming, and so I'm literally running down the street, making phone calls. First, calling my wife, tell her, "Hey, I'm okay." Waking her up, "I'm okay. It's not me, but kind of. I'll call you later." So I didn't want her to see something and think, the worst. But the worst that we could imagine happened. The first thought on my mind is we're out there, and I don't know if you've seen where you were when you found out, but we got there, and as you walked up to the building, it's like I see just everywhere red lights and blue lights and equipment and people going everywhere, and people, as I got closer, you could hear screams, and you could hear, it's just that thing that plays over and over in your mind. It really does. I'm getting goosebumps, but I'd just been to the 2-year memorial, and I will always be connected with that town because of this. But as I got closer, my mind's what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? We need to get survivors. And as I watched the fire department, 6, 8, 10 stories up with ladder trucks, getting retired people over. If it happened earlier in the day, we probably wouldn't have had nearly as many fatalities because everybody been out, work, whatever. But the stories, there's so many stories. Somebody, I didn't want to go home. We just went to this. So I spent the night. This person spent the night with their friend. They made that fateful decision, and they passed away in the collapse. And you think of from 1 to 94 and all the people in the community and how important it was. But then we knew we had a job to do as well. The way the building collapsed made it very difficult to be able to just really do a search and rescue. We had to get the other part of the building down, and our focus was on that. Thank goodness for the state of Florida coming in, sending the money, sending the relief to get the building down. And we had planned a big July 4th fireworks, but we canceled that. I remember standing out on the sidewalk at 3:00 in the morning, telling elected officials, "I'm canceling it. It's not happening, for obvious reasons." But on July 4th at 10:24 at night, we imploded that building, and that was another bittersweet because now it kicked it up to a different level. So you got to realize for about the 24th to the 4th is about 12 days. Math's not going quick. Our hands were tied. They were on the top of the pile doing things, but we really couldn't get in there with equipment to pull things out. So yes, that kind of, you don't know why you are in particular situations and why things change the way they did to make me available to come here. I had no plans of leaving, but there's bigger plans involved, and this opened up.
So 12 days to implode that building, 10 months to knock down Town Hall in Fort Myers Beach. A whole different story, I know.
Yep.
But so the first time that you come down,
What a segue, dear. Wow.
the first time you come down, you're hired, or maybe you're not hired yet, but you drive down Estero Boulevard and you see the destruction. What did you think? What the hell am I getting myself
Well, I flashbacked right there.
Okay.
Right? I really did. And I remember coming the first the council meeting on May 1st. I had driven in, and I came and drove into the Diamond Head, and I remember pulling up and seeing the collapse, or the building that had just been demolished right next door. I don't know the name of it.
Estero Island Beach Club.
That's it. I went straight there. I'm like, for a moment, I just focused on the task at hand now and what we had been through, and how quickly, really, at the end of the day, it took right about a month from the collapse to getting the whole building removed from the property. And I'm sorry, let me back up, to getting the last body pulled out of the debris. So it seems like a short window, but I also realized that was just one building. It wasn't the whole town. So then when you look at it as a collective, and I come and I look, and I'm like, I can't do this by myself. There's no way. There's no way one person. There's no way 2 people or 3 people or a body of 5 elect. It takes the whole village, and we need to direct and guide and help and pull and push and tug and everything we can do, but we just need to make sure we're all focused on the goal at hand. Will it be back to the way it was? Not really physically, but As far as the people, the people hopefully will still be the same and will still be here. So we've got to focus on the task at hand.
So speaking of the people, the staff, do you have the staff
segue?
The staff exactly the way you want it yet? Is everybody in place that you want in place?
Not from my perspective now. And as I pull the layers back of the onion, I'm putting some pieces together. A gentleman sitting to my left here was really a diamond in the rough that I just discovered by accident. He was already there. He came to do a contracts management job. And as I kept listening to him talk to contractors, that the town was getting, things in order, I kept thinking, okay, there's a piece we need to plug in, because it's that can do, will do, whatever it takes to get the job done attitude. And I'm a different kind of town manager. I will just tell you that now. I know I've heard the stories, what you're used to. It's in the past. We don't look back. I look forward, but I think we take things to the lowest common denominator to get them accomplished. So long story short, there's still some staff we need to hire. There's some plans I've got, and we can talk a little bit more about those when we get to the permitting, part, if that comes up, and how I want how
well, you just teed it up.
How I want to set that up. But again, I think I started off, it's actually 14 weeks. So remember, 14 weeks.
Right.
We've been here a lot longer.
Right.
So I'm still getting my feet wet a little.
Right.
So you teed it up for me. So we've heard over and over again about the permitting process, that on one side, folks feel like it's taking too long, and some simple permits should be expedited. And then on the other side, there's builders that are asking for permits, and people are saying at the town level that possibly those permits are taking longer because those builders are not keeping up with. They need to provide more information. They need to fill out more forms. So what can the staff do to process them timely, and what changes do you think you're going to make?
Just to throw out a few statistics here, a few numbers, actual numbers from yesterday. 730 permits are waiting required documentation. 731. We had 1,000, I think, and 7 homes that are totally gone. 731 permits are waiting documentation, which means that you maybe as a owner builder or a developer. And remember, you probably have contractors that are doing more than one project, so they're probably plugged in. This doesn't represent, 731 individual homeowners. There could be other contractors and things of that nature. So there's information. Rejection letters go out. So we're asking for certain information. Also, we have 87 permits are just waiting for payment. Come pay, and you pick your permit. 87 permits.
So Andy, do you think it's because did the residents know that? Does this person on the other end know that? Does the contractor on the other end know that? Are they not checking? I mean, is somebody getting an email?
Well, where does the responsibility lie? Yeah. Is it them to check once in a while? Is it the town to reach out? Like, where's the middle ground there? What can be done to kind of bridge that gap?
Because that's a lot of people. That's
Absolutely.
A lot of permits.
The town does have a responsibility. Each individual has a responsibility. We send letters, we send information. Hopefully people are following, applicants are following up with their letters and following up with staff. But as a caveat, as part of what we're trying to, actually just this week, Frank and I were talking, and I was talking with our planning, our community development director. We are going to implement kind of a different dichotomy on how we look at. We're going to shift the paradigm a little bit and say, okay, instead of saying I need to hire employees at entry-level position to handle permits who have some experience in permitting, we're going to push the customer service. Because I looked at the job description and the ad, and the first thing was, under the knowledge, skills, and abilities, customer service experience. So we're going to kind of shift that. We're going to teach people how to do the process. We're going to go in there and we're going to say, okay, so we don't bring in bad habits, right? We want to teach how to do this. And we're just going to do it at a low level. But first, we're going to incorporate staff support that we already have there. Remember, we brought in staff from Parks and Recreation who had never done permitting, and it really, from what I wasn't here, but it really understand it went well. So they had zero knowledge on how to do permitting. So it's not so much that I need a lot of knowledge on permitting. I want people that come in that can reach out and follow up and know how to communicate. Remember, it's all about communication and relationships. So we want to build those relationships. We want to make sure that our staff is equipped and our town is equipped to be able to respond. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a system where once you come in and apply, we want to reach out to you like within 24 hours business days and follow up with you. All right, this is what you're permitted. This is what you're doing. And just so you, basically the owner builder, we have a lot of that.
So I don't mean to interrupt, but let me read something from a listener or a resident. The problem is you get a denial with more info needed. You fix that, and then you get another denial for something else that you fix, and that you get another. This takes weeks, and between each denial, can't we just get one denial with everything you need to fix it?
That's my goal. Obviously, is to get to that point, and also remember that in some situations the fire department's involved. So there's an outside entity that we don't control that kind of works, and mostly with commercial, and a lot with everything. So we have to send things to the fire. We're even waiting on something for the fire department now. That's our gymnasium that Bay Oaks Gymnasium that we want to get back up and running as soon as we can. So yes, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to streamline things, make everybody in the communication process with our residents and our people applying for permits understand everything that's required as soon as we can.
In your opinion,
we cut those corners.
In your opinion, are the permits going out fast enough?
Yes and no. I'm going to be try to be politically correct. Yes, but I think that we as a town can always continually to improve and look for areas to improve. So I think that we can always get faster. We can always do that better. I think we just got a new town attorney, and I'm talking to her a lot about these things about, the unilateral authority I will have to do a few things, and we want to establish that. So it's like if you have a bed and breakfast or vacation rental, and the building's not there, do you need to come back and apply and keep applying? No, your building's not there. So I can unilaterally say, no, it's on hold until you get back, and then it kicks back in again. So just some things we need to define a lot better that kind of been hanging on the periphery that nobody's focused on.
Are there strategies, measures in place for things like, I just need my fence, or I just need like the simple things that could just be expedited to sweet?
Absolutely. I've been in places where we've done that. One way to do that is to have an in-house planner, to have an in-house staff to be able to have plans review that's here more, so we speed the process. So that's the goal, is to get those kind of things where they're, again, where we can just approve it on the spot. We can issue the permit, it's a 10-minute permit or whatever the case is, a mini permit, a fast lane, so we can get those things going.
Track, yeah.
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, where does the permitting situation stand right now in my opinion?
My professional opinion and what I've experienced, about a 6.
When will it be a 10?
As soon as I get my arms completely around it, and implement what I'm trying to do, we've
You're gonna have to have some big arms for all of this, right?
We've got like 12 interviews set up in the next week with potential permit technicians. So we're really trying to push that envelope now. Everybody, the HR director, she's new, and again, we can only use the new excuse so long. We're here now. It's our responsibility. Anything that's happened is my responsibility. So we need to make sure we're doing it right. And I am, very focused on all of the whole process, but of the running the town, but especially this is because this is what I hear the most about.
Right. Okay. He's watching from his roof now. How do we get Rick off his roof?
Well, first of all, we really hope he's safe. We really hope he's being very careful and cautious. One thing that we have tried to do is try to come up with a solution that really is the best for the town. And I'll go a little further to talk about that. We are a member of the National Flood Insurance Program. There are other towns that have not followed the rules that are established from up here that we've agreed to participate in. Flood insurance is a big deal with everyone that lives here. there's a particular town. I believe we're a 7 now with the rating. There's a town nearby.
Which, when you're a 7 rating, what is that? What percentage? I don't want to quote it. I looked it up, but what percentage discount do you get off the rate at a 7? Is it 15?
Yes.
15%.
And we'd love to be a 1, but we're not going to be there. The town I had in Tennessee, which was not like this, we were a 3. We went from a 5 to a 3. So things we can improve. But however, if we allow things to be built or are left alone, but anyhow, this other town was doing those things, not adhering to the rules, not adhering to the things that really are above us. They are out of our control. And I met with him 3 times myself, trying to come up. And I've asked the question with our attorney, what authority do I have? Can I circumvent? And she said, no, you don't have the license. A building official has the license. The state has the authority. Now, remember, we're completely on the radar because we brought the state in with these conversations. So the town's being watched, obvious, because there's a lot of money being filtered in here from the state and federal government. So we're already on the clock. But this other city, they are town or what, I don't know much about them, but they're in this area. They had actually gone, they did a few of these homes. They went from a 5 to a 7. So everybody's flood insurance went up, not individually, but collectively, millions of dollars.
So really, we're in a situation where the town believes that the structures were connected. Amy and Rick believe that they weren't connected. And the ruling from the town, if they're connected, that's the ruling. Steve made the ruling that it's connected, and FEMA's saying, or the state saying it's connected, and you have to now abide by the 50%. And that's the end of the story.
The application and the original permit was for a lateral addition, not a separate garage.
Even though they're saying it was just connected by
that is correct.
paint.
We were on another meeting on Thursday or Wednesday of this week with the state official. I don't want to say his name. I don't want to get him off
Sure.
a ton of emails.
Con Cole.
Yeah, you said it. But yeah,
Just to be honest
He's
with you,
already-
just to be honest with you about here, that guy was a jackass.
that's what I understand. Yeah,
I mean, these people have suffered enough that I
Absolutely.
understand the rule, but do you have to be an ass too
no,
on top
you don't.
of it?
And again, that's about the relationships and how you treat people.
So let me ask you this, completely out of left field. You have a structure that was connected. We have a structure that was connected to a giant building in Times Square that has now become like the welcome beacon with paintings on it. How is that any different?
I don't know enough about that to really opine about it. I haven't looked into that one too far. We have been asked that question, and we are in the process.
Okay.
I'm in the process of finding out more details about that, but that has been brought to my attention.
Imagine
this
what's going to
week.
happen if that has to come down.
That is correct.
Yeah. So let's talk about beach renourishment. Obviously, that's huge. And there's been some issues with people signing easements and feeling like Big Brother's coming after their property. And maybe.
Do you want a water or anything?
Do you want a paper
Okay.
towel?
All right.
We were standing out in the sun earlier today and you weren't
Nothing.
sweating at all. And now you're in the shade and you're sweating bullets. I'm
Well,
like,
it's hard.
Blocking the wind from this. It's crazy, right?
so how are we doing with the beach renourishment?
Well, from everything that I've hang on.
Hang on. It's okay.
Let me get my numbers. So beach renourishment. We've got
Right here. That's the numbers you're looking for?
yeah, there's some more numbers there.
Oh, we got many.
But the beach renourishment, Ian damages on our beach, 220,400 cubic yards of sand were eroded away. So we lost a lot of beach. FEMA, Florida Department of Emergency Management, Public Assistance, has pumped in $7.97 million to the central part and the south part of the beach. We've had to stop because it's bird nesting season and there's some issues down on the south end. The north end, that $1.4 million has been pumped in. So we're working on that. The town is not coming to take properties. If people don't sign, then it's okay. It can create because there's, in a perfect situation, the beach, it'll go from the water up, over, and down. So you have you put the sand back. We put this emergency type berm in. So
it's great.
we want to bring some more sand in to raise the beach up. What people not signing, from my understanding, and of course, Chad is our expert there.
Yes.
As we go forward, you could go along and you dip down and you have issues. So on the north part, see if I can get these numbers right, 'cause we want to be accurate. Yes,
Oh.
people, 29 in the north have agreed, 65 in the central, and 17 in the south. So 111 have said yes.
Out of how many?
I believe it's right now 231.
So about half of the people that have property on the island have said yes. The other half have said no or haven't answered.
Right. We expect 13 more, so that's
Okay.
124. We've got 26 hard no's as of now.
And
no response yet, 81. And remember, some of those no responses are because the property's being sold. There's some new owners. So I know Chad's reaching out. We met yesterday, and he's going to have some information he's going to present to the town council, I believe, over the next couple of weeks in our MMP and then into our second meeting in August. That really goes into a lot of that detail.
okay, so go ahead.
And you may not, I'm not going to, I'm going to ask the question, but I understand you may not have all the information because like you said with Chad, is there a certain number that has to be achieved for it to happen, or it's going to happen no matter what, just on those homes that say yes?
From everything I understand, it's going to happen.
Okay.
Right.
Now,
And there just
But
might be
it's just going to
there might be
be,
divots.
it might be,
That is correct. And what you can find is there could be situations where it comes up to the beach over and there's a gap, and then all of a sudden you create these ponds and these pools and things like that. And vegetation's another issue. There's no,
part of the requirement with if you accept the sand, you have to build the dune.
Correct.
You have to install a dune, and you're allowed to trim it and you're allowed to work on it, but the town can also go on your property and say, hey, listen, I mean, you cut it too short. I mean, they are allowed to do that. They are allowed to do that. And that's some of what the concern is. But I mean, we are going to get a bunch of sand.
That is correct. And it does protect the town. It does protect the town.
Right.
Dunes are protective.
Well, we don't need a town hall update because clearly we know that the town hall's finally being knocked down after 10 months. It'll be the guy told us yesterday, 4 days. They're going to start removing the debris on Monday, and we did a video this morning, and I'll post it on Monday where you can see Andy giving his vision of, which I think is fabulous. You folks out there are going to love it. He's got a vision of Town Hall and Bay Oaks and the fields with a possibility of some volunteer help with the dugouts, which, people love helping out youth sports and other things that are going on out there. And you're going to have to watch the video because I don't want to let it out, but he's got an idea for workforce housing too, which is probably the best idea that I've heard so far. So that video will be posted on Monday. And the sound was fabulous, by the way, because we used the wireless mics. But give us an update on Bayside Park, because the town has guaranteed that it'll be open by Labor Day.
I didn't do that. He did that. But
Oh,
no, I'm just
did
kidding.
you really
I
do
did.
that?
No, I did, because I think what we needed to do was we needed to start getting some wins as much as we could control winds. And so what we're going to see now is the poles are structurally sound. So we're going to have to do some sanding and painting to get them consistent, because you can see some debris that's scratching them. We have our shade cells. We protected those, so we'll have those. The electricity's good. We have to put it back the way it was prior. So according to FEMA, everything has to go back just like it was. So we have been assured that the turf, and it's even better turf than was there before because of the organization that's going to put it in. And of course, we're getting money from FEMA, but we're really coming in very low with what we're doing. So that should be up and running. We're the one thing, we got electrical, but we want to get electrical to the actual stage. So we're working on that now, but we should be up, and the lights are delayed because they're just hard to find right now. So we'll put the palm trees back. They won't be coconut palms. They'll be regular palms.
Wow.
So we'll put those back. So everything should be happening. You should see.
Did you hear the history of the coconut palm problem down there?
He went right over that. Just let it go.
Because it wasn't supposed to be coconut palms.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay. I didn't realize
From
that.
what I remember,
You
it
don't-
wasn't.
You really don't. They're not native, and you don't really put coconut palms out. They're good. Tourists love them. Tourists love coconut palms because in South Florida, over in Southeast Florida, people come and get them, and they make these drinks and sell them on the side of the road, and people love coconut, but they become missiles, and they become detrimental to, and they can
Especially
hurt
in a
you as
park.
you walk by.
Right.
You can just walk by and get knocked out.
That would just be my luck.
Bill, welcome back, Bill. Sorry.
No.
Bill Veach is here. He's going to come on afterward. We're going to talk to him about some issues. But so Labor Day, it'll be open.
Yes, sir. We will. We were working with a couple of events that will be coming up toward the end of the month around the anniversary, and also with the songwriters event that happens around the area. So we've got a lot of things that are And we really feel like that's a win, and that's going to be a good time to get that done.
And you have an update on the clock for us?
We do, actually.
Okay, great. The Times Square clock is a big selfie spot for people for forever. And so what do you hear?
We actually, the town has it in possession. And reason why that's critical is because now we can do some marrying up of the utilities and know what's going on. And we're talking to the the manufacturer. The clock, how it's manufactured today. Apparently, we were understanding that we were hearing we needed a air conditioned utility box, electrical box, and we're like, what? Okay. So we're kind of working through that now. So that's kind of the holdup. But we fully anticipate, no promises. Can never make promises with dealing with people you don't control. But we anticipate the clock being up by the 28th of September.
Nice.
Okay. Interesting date that you picked there. Yeah. It's amazing how one thing can mean so much to a community. I mean, it really is
iconic. Yeah.
Yes,
No, that's
absolutely.
So have you heard anything about the pier?
The pier, actually a conversation last week with one of the county assistant county managers talking about, working in partnership with them, with ULI, to actually develop a proposal for this. I think that had been kind of in the works a little bit in the past. So we had a meeting with some ULI representatives, and we're going to be, it's planners and things in the area to come up with a design for the whole.
How long? When will it be open, Andy? When will it be up?
There's a lot of planning.
Kevin Wayne said 2 to 3 years. Does that sound accurate?
Is that for the pier and Lynn Hall Park?
No, that was the pier.
Okay. I know the pier in Jacksonville Beach when I was up there had gotten, I thought Hurricane Matthew or something, they built this pier that would last and survive up to a Category 4 hurricane. Well, Category 3 pushed up from the bottom and pushed all the platforms, and they even lost pilings. They're like, we don't know why these pilings should last. So it took at least 3 years for them to get that back.
Okay. Yeah, because there's so many different organizations involved too. Army Corps of Engineers,
multiple governments. That's always so much bureaucracy. Unfortunately, if we could do it, it's cost prohibitive. But if we could do it, we would. But we continue to push the pier. That's just part of the life here as well.
I will say that the bathrooms that the county has down there,
I told the guy today,
are the best I've ever seen.
I had to go twice in a half hour, so I went over there and I thanked the guy that it's air conditioned, it's clean, they're always taking care of it.
Those are big deals. And in any town that does any special events or anything like that just spend a little extra dollar to have those. It's well worth the price of admission.
Even if you have to pay for the potty, do it.
Now, Andy, I know you don't have to make these decisions, you just have to implement them, but when you hear from the residents about the building back of the, go ahead. I didn't mean, go ahead, right ahead. I didn't mean, sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
All right. So when you previously were talking with Ed, when you were doing the interview, you talked about the old Florida style that you like and that you got from the residents that they like. So, now that has to be accomplished, by adhering to new codes. Everything's got to go higher. Right. What can you and your staff do to balance that desire with the desire of developers that may want to do more than that?
Yeah, a lot of this is going to be in the hands of the elected body, obviously, the LPA and all that as you go forward. But it's a couple of cities I've been in, they put design standards out, and they've kind of incorporated those into the the comp plan to make sure that we build that the town looks a certain way and is done a certain way. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're in that position now to where developers are going to come in. They really can't go up. So are they buying now to go out, to spread out as far? Are they trying to get as many lots and that type of thing? And so that offers another opportunity and concern for people being able to see the beach. There's no guarantee that you have a view. I get all that, but we're trying to keep the charm. We're going to do as much as we can, working with the elected body, try to keep that expectation for the way it has been around it. Even though everything's got to be lifted up, it can still have a lot of charm. There's a gentleman that came in a couple of meetings ago that they're building back a home that they lost here, and they're going to build it the same way. It's now going to be just.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. We all know, or people all know, it has to go you know, it has to start up. But it's still, if you had 2 stories before, you should have 2 stories again, just at a different height.
Well,
I mean,
I agree
Right?
with that. I agree
Thank
with
you.
that.
well, I mean, we interviewed the London-based CEO last night, and he spent
You
$38
did?
million
I wasn't there.
on the
I'm sorry.
outrigger property. He can't make that investment back in 3 stories. So it's going to be an interesting
That is
But
true.
if you
scenario
bought
over the
it-
next year.
if
Huh?
you bought it, you knew what the rules were. I mean,
know.
obviously, you're not going to spend that
That
kind
is-
of money and
yeah.
not do your due diligence.
So, Andy,
Good thing.
you keep saying elected body.
Yes.
I think you mean the town council.
That is correct. I'm
who,
sorry.
who do you like the most and dislike the most?
Well,
you don't even
I-
have to dignify that.
I actually love Bill and John.
Who just happened to be sitting right off camera.
More than the others, or are you just saying? I'm just
Actually, when you come into, and it's really interesting when you come into a community as
You're an idiot.
a town man. That's an interesting question. I love it though. I love that. You build a rapport at the interview process,
Right.
And as I was going through that, I'm doing the same thing. I was interviewing, to see, okay,
Yeah. Can I work for them?
Right.
Yeah. Is this going
Right.
to be a good thing, a good communication thing? And it was unanimous. So
Yes.
that's a big deal. You're not coming in 3-2 or 4-1. Or
Right.
you have to convince 1 or 2 people. So the group that hires you is always a special group. What happens after that is totally out of you. I
Right.
chose this group.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure.
And they chose you. Yeah.
And they chose me. So
Yeah.
now, I know they absolutely love me. I mean, that goes without saying.
Well, and the
right,
interesting,
Bill?
the interesting thing about where you came from is when we interviewed the guy that lost. Was he the mayor?
He was the mayor. Yes.
He lost, and he loves you, and he lost the
Yes.
election by a small amount of
Like
votes.
17 votes. I think.
And if he said he's running again, and when he runs again, he's going to try and hire you back. And somehow the politics of whoever won, it didn't work out. And that's the way it always is
It
with
is.
town managers or city
It
managers,
is.
whatever, and the politicians at hand. Sometimes they change things out. But what the town of Fort Myers Beach needs now is consistency for a
Right.
good 5 years. I mean, on the council and in the town manager's position, because there's a lot of rebuilding going on.
Absolutely. And it's going to be institutional knowledge. Fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have a long history as a town. 1996, I believe, 95, somewhere in
Yep.
there. So that's not a lot of history. So we have, I think, 1 employee that's been with the town over 11 years. So and they were in public works. So one thing that I believe is something that needs to be done here, and I've done it everywhere I go, is I surround myself with people who are very, very knowledgeable, who are smarter than me. I'm okay with that. Henry Ford said, if he didn't have an answer, give me 10 minutes, I'll find the answer for you. And Henry Ford was very successful.
What did he do?
People would ask him questions, and if he didn't have an answer, he'd
No,
say,
what-
No,
who was
he's
he?
being sarcastic.
well, if you drive, well, you don't. Okay.
He used to.
You said something today when we were over at Bay Oaks about customer service, the next level of customer service. Tell people how you want that to be what the town does.
Yeah. I'll go back when I got to Surfside, 99 out of 100 complaints that I would get. I'm not kidding. Were about building permits, COs, code related stuff.
Mhm.
So I hired a building official, took a chance, and nobody really knows this, but we had 2 guys that we were interviewing, and they were very, very close. So I did a scientific thing. Everybody needs to pay attention to this. It's very scientific because we took a quarter out and we flipped the quarter, and it landed on this guy. And I went from 99 out of 100 complaints to 0 in like 30 days. And I flipped a coin. I literally,
Wow.
I had somebody else come flip a coin,
Mhm.
but I
What was his job?
He was the building official.
Do you have that coin, and can you flip it in
Do you have that
town hall
person?
for everybody around town?
I have
here?
him on speed dial.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I have already reached out to him, and he actually has a home not far from here up north that was affected by the hurricane. So so again, I really believe that customer service, customer satisfaction. J. Edwards Deming, was the father of total quality management with Japan. in the 50s and 60s. And we all know how he brought them out of, it's cheap. It's built cheap. They quality products. But he would say, we want to take the customer from customer satisfaction to customer delight. And I want people to come and deal. I want our town hall. I want our town to be the benchmark. People are going to come and say, look what happened to them, but look what they did. I mean, really, we've got a unique opportunity in the state of Florida, in the country. I'm the only manager that's ever managed a town that had a building collapse, that lost 98 souls, that had to figure that out. So I get how to do that. I understand how we go forward in making people as whole as we can. And, it's a hug. It's a sit down and talk to you eye to eye. It's a come on in. I know I've got this corny accent. I get that, but that just goes with the territory, folks. And if my friend to my left here, he loves my accent.
So Andy, before we let you go, tell people that are listening. Last question: how are you going to make them feel better about the permitting?
About the permitting, it is even for the last 14 weeks, it has been my sole focus. Now, but again, there's been other things that have come in, have been part of what I'm doing, have been part of the day-to-day. Remember, there's still a day-to-day government that we got to get the budget ready. We got to, prepare. And we're dealing with all these funds and all this money coming from everywhere. But if the people are not satisfied, and remember, sometimes an answer is no. I mean, it really is. And that's just got to be the answer, but we've got to have the right reasons why it's a no. We can't always say yes, because sometimes our decisions, good or bad, yes or no, right or wrong, could have consequences on everybody. We want to have positive consequences. We want to make sure that we don't get your flood insurance raised by decisions we make. We don't want to do that. We really don't. And Bill and I had a conversation while he's in the Atlanta airport yesterday. John and I had a conversation this week. The mayor and I had a conversation this week. Karen and Dan, we've had conversations this week about this. We talk continuously. We want to make sure, and I listen to them. We got to do better. We got to do better. I'm the do better guy. I mean, nobody beats me up more than me. My dad told me, and I'll leave you with this. My dad told me years ago when I was going out as a 13, 14, whatever, remember who you are. And I still today, they're gone, but at 64 years old, I still hear my dad say, remember who you are. And because I am now in a position that can affect thousands of people's lives. And
your stamp, along with this council, will be on the rebuild of this community.
Absolutely. No matter what happens. Good or bad.
Andy Hyatt, everybody, the town manager of Fort Myers Beach. Thank you, Andy. We hope to have you back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Bill Veach is coming up next, everybody. First, we need to tell you about a couple of our sponsors, Alex King and Current Coastal Realty, one of our sponsors. You see Alex everywhere on Fort Myers Beach. You know him. You love him. The 50% rule, he knows all about it. Building solutions, elevate or not elevate. His office is located on Fort Myers Beach at 100 Lovers Lane. I want a house on Lovers Lane somewhere. Imagine Ed Ryan lives on Lovers Lane. Of course he does. Alex King lives and owns right here on Fort Myers Beach. And you can see him donating hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past 2 years to FMB charities. Give Alex King a call at 239-849-3663. Power Block Builders is a sponsor of the show. Who knew? I mean, I knew that. Power Block Builders has built over 600 structural shells for tract homes. Listen, when you call Power Block Builders, you're going to get hurricane impact windows, elevated concrete columns, tile throughout, LED recessed lighting, metal roof. They got a long list of things. You can give Power Block Builders a call or check them out online at powerblockbuilders.com. Thank you so much for the sponsorships. Ladies and gentlemen, Councilman Bill Veach.
How you doing, Ed?
Thank you for coming on.
Just for the record, I want to say that Andy is my favorite current town manager.
And I appreciate you dressing up and shaving for the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, I just got off a plane late last night.
Where did you go? Did you want?
I came from Helsinki, Finland.
No kidding.
Yep.
What was that like?
Well, their summer is 60 degrees and rainy.
Summer.
And they're crazy about saunas.
Now, okay, what
And they
there's a
wanted-
story there?
Everybody, they just love saunas. I think it has more to do with drinking beer and eating sausage in the sauna. But they wanted you, they try to get you to go do a sauna. I said, I live in Florida.
You're in a sauna every day.
I don't need to.
Right.
Yeah.
So, where else did you go? I mean, Helsinki. How do you come up with that? As your wife, you and your wife are sitting around and say, "I want to go to Helsinki."
Well, we like to travel, and we took the month. We really need to get away, so we went to Greenland and Germany, Norway, and then Finland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy moly! So that sounds like a fun vacation.
Yeah, a lot of really nice hikes. We were in a very remote place in Norway on a fjord with 50 people in a village, and it was 40 minutes to the nearest shop.
Wow. I know you like to bike a lot. Did you get a chance to do any biking?
Now it was hiking.
Mostly hiking.
Yeah, yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know, you lost your house in the storm. You have a house on the beach side. By the way,
Right.
did you sign the easement yet? Or
Yeah, I did.
so you lost your house, but you didn't lose your garage.
Right. What happened is we had a house. We found newspapers in the wall from 1932. It's a 90-year-old house built on 72 wood pilings. 5 years ago, we built a garage, and the garage was built up to the female elevation, bomb-proof. It survived the storm. Doors and windows worked. No leak through the roof. Nothing. It was really a great design. Then we found out that, and we were going to rebuild. The house is gone. We don't even know where most of it is. We think
Okay.
most of it's in the back bay.
Sure.
But we don't know. We haven't seen sign of it.
Before you get to that, Bill, I mean, when you first come back, did you evacuate it? Obviously.
Right.
When you first come back to your house and it's not there, what is that? That feeling I mean, so many people on the island have had to go through that.
Well, we came onto the island and really couldn't get past Lake Lanikai. And we were walking along and we saw a lot of places where there were houses similar to ours and they were no longer there. So it wasn't like we had to get to our house
Okay.
to
You
put
knew.
2 and 2 together. Yeah.
But still, when you show up and you're standing on your property, you got to be like, this is a nightmare. I can't believe this happened.
It was a shock, but to be honest, we ran into good friends of ours who stayed on the island, and they were okay. And the relief and joy of finding them okay was far outweighed the sorrow of losing our stuff.
Okay.
I'm not a big stuff guy.
Speaking of stuff, did you find some stuff? Were you able to recover some meaningful items?
Random things. We found a couple of statues, a lot of cutlery. And we had like a big piece of our chimney that went from the house around to the front of the garage. And like 3 or 4 days later, we managed to move the chimney, and underneath it was one of our dinner plates without a scratch.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and there are stories like that all over the island about
There
people
is.
finding things,
It's a randomness.
returning things to
Yeah.
people.
And I have a good friend of mine, his wife passed away a year or so ago. And we found a picture of his late wife on the beach where she liked to hang out face up on the beach.
That is crazy. So to the garage thing, like you know Rick and Amy, you've been communicating with them through this whole thing.
Right.
Do you,
And, we've been working on it from our house. And then there's other people besides Rick that are also, there was a condo, I think. I know a couple of homeowners in a similar circumstance. So we've been working through this for probably a good 6 months now. And we had hopes that we could be able to keep our garage. It's built up to FEMA, but there's an additional elevation, which is from the DEP, which is 4.5 feet higher, only in the V zone, that applies to our house. And what we found out after a long and arduous road, and nobody on town staff has really ever had a situation like this, where there's such a devastating hurricane, there's so much destruction. So I worked through this a lot with them, and the conclusion was that it was permitted as a lateral addition.
now, which one are we talking about? Theirs or
Our
yours?
garage, our garage and theirs.
Okay.
And everybody who's in the same boat. It was
And
permitted as a
explain
lateral
what that
addition.
mean. Like, what does that mean?
When I say it's permitted, it means they have to be attached. They say structurally attached, but it's not going to hold up. The new garage didn't support the old house. It got
Right.
destroyed. But when you go to get the permitting, if you build, you're not allowed to put a garage between the house and the street. You'd have to get a variance for that if you want an independent, because it's not allowed by town code. So if you attach it, then you can put an addition in under the 50% rule. And that's called a lateral addition. And the rules are a little softer on a lateral addition compared to a brand new build. So we were allowed to do the FEMA elevation. The DEP elevation never came up. I didn't even know about it. I think with Rick, their house, he built it bomb-proof, but he didn't build it to the modern code, meaning the breakaway walls, and probably, I think, more of a foundation.
When you say bomb-proof, have there been a lot of bombs dropped on Fort Myers Beach?
Well, about a year ago, sure looked like there was
I see.
a really big one.
So do you agree with the town's ruling on their structure?
The town does not really have the authority to go through and say, we're going to ignore FEMA, and certainly not town staff. If there's a decision that says we are going to let people have some liberties with flood elevation at the cost of flood insurance rates, that becomes a policy decision through the town council. That's not staff's authority, right? And so they're hearing, and I did read through, you probably have seen it because you see a lot of stuff that goes on. I read through the email chain between staff, the Lowrys and Mr. Cole from, the floodplain manager. And in my mind, the town really did, they really tried very hard. They pushed it to the point where I think that Mr. Cole was being annoyed with them.
Yeah, he was.
For being kind of repetitive.
I told you this is the way it is. But he's relying on Steve's ruling that it is what it is. His ruling as the building inspector was that it was attached.
It was a lateral addition. Now, you have to have some physical attachment to be a lateral addition, but it doesn't mean that they're not structurally independent. Like my garage is fine, no cracks, nothing. My old house is gone. So they were obviously not dependent on each other structurally, but it was a lateral addition. By the way, it was permitted.
But do you see how silly this becomes? Like it really wasn't attached other than facing. Like I understand the rules are the rules, but can FEMA come in and say, all right, listen, it wasn't really attached. The garage is going to be okay. They're going to build their house. It's going to be up to code. Everything's going to be up to code.
But the garage won't be.
Right. The garage still won't be. If the garage was up to code.
It was up to 2019 code, but the code's different now because of the
I don't think it
storm.
had the breakaway walls.
Well, then how they get the
done
permitting in 2019?
So,
Mine was in 2017, so 2 years before that.
right. Theirs was in 2019. So I'm assuming that if it got approved, it was up to whatever's then. And then
So the codes are
something
different now
changed.
because
Was
of the
it
storm.
floodplain map that changed?
Their
and
zone
then that-
changed.
Well,
Their
like
zone
it's-
changed.
And their zone changed.
And you go through and they have a table where they say what a lateral addition means. And like I said, it's a softer standard than building from scratch. And now, if you would have told me 5 years ago, Bill, are you willing to pay another $10,000 to lift your house up 4.5 feet, do a little more foundation work, so that if a major storm hits, wipes out your house and leaves the garage, you can keep the garage? I probably would have done it, but I also would have thought, what are the odds that that's going to happen?
Right. Which was what everybody thought.
Yeah.
So is it, in your opinion, that garage needs to come down?
There's a couple still questions out there. One question I asked staff after talking to Amy was, can they come to town council and get a variance to make that an accessory structure?
And what would that?
How would that affect?
How would that be different?
Because that is something that's within the power of the town council to grant that variance.
What's
to
the
allow an
difference
accessory
between
structure.
an accessory structure and what what it's classified as now?
Well, it was permitted as a lateral addition. If it was permitted as an accessory structure, and they would have had to come into town council to get a variance to be able to put an accessory structure between the house and the street, because it's not allowed according to code.
So can they come and ask for that variance?
I asked that to town staff. They sent me the whole list. And in that huge email chain, there was Mr. Cole saying that you cannot make an accessory structure out of the remains of a storm damaged house.
Remains. So in your
let me
opinion,
just
does it
wait,
need to
let me
come down?
just- I think that, I think that it's like my garage. I can speak to myself, that we came to the resignation that we are going to have to tear down the garage.
Okay.
Now that did a couple of things. One is it's a how can you not be attached to a building that survived that
Right.
storm where I am? I mean, the roof didn't leak, doors and window works. It's beautiful inside. I've got, I've got tongue and groove, ceiling panels on it. It's really a nice room. I can understand the attachment to it. But once we came to the opinion that we will not be able to keep it, it meant that our rebuild was now no longer constrained by working around the old garage, that we could do other things. And actually, I could go through and lift up the building in the garage and add some reinforcement. and then repair it. But the cost, I don't think would be worth it. I think the cost for 400 square feet is just, it'd be too much money to really make
to
that.
fix what's already there, to bring it up to
bring
code.
bring it up to code. And I think the Rick's probably finding the same thing.
Right.
Now,
So go ahead.
well, and I'm talking to Rick, I think that, in Rick's mind and some of the people he's worked with, that he hasn't been shown in writing in some code or some policy
Yes.
that says you can't make that into accessory structure. There's no way for me to keep that. He hasn't seen that yet. And
So
he's looking for that.
If he sees that, can we get him to come down?
He's pretty happy up there.
He's not happy up there when it's this hot.
Well, it gets hot. He comes down for lightning, he told me.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of fans.
Yes.
A lot of people honking
Yes.
as he goes by.
The downside to it is there's a lot of press coverage, and it doesn't make the town look good.
To the average person
Yeah,
who's watching
right.
that doesn't know
Right. That's
all
not
the
engaged
backstory
in
and
it.
minutia.
And I've read comments, people are blaming the town.
Right.
But I don't, this is really town staff. Cannot approve keeping that. They don't have the authority to do that.
Now, let's say FEMA gives him the answer and says, okay, we can make this work. On Monday, apparently they're going to get an answer, some kind of answer from the 3 FEMA guys that came down on Monday. If they decide that they can keep it, you can keep yours then,
Well,
right?
that's right.
And the others I know, I would assume it's a similar circumstance. But it's different because his is technically not living space. I have living space above mine that's not up to flood. And I think some of the other ones are similar, where they're caught up in the DEP versus the FEMA elevation. I also talked to him, quite frankly, because his garage is really cool. I don't know if you've been in it.
Yes.
He's got all of his equipment and everything, and it's really got a high ceiling, and he can do a lot of things with that high ceiling. I said, well, if you get rid of the garage and build a house up on stilts, you get a big garage. I mean, if it's a 2,000 square foot house, you get a 2,000 square foot garage. You can do a lot in a 2,000 square foot garage.
Amy's watching, and she said she appreciates Bill coming out to the roof to speak with Rick today. So just so you know that. But I think, and this should play into nothing that has to do with how much people have to pay for the flood and all that, but the emotional attachment for people that have gone through so much.
Yeah.
It's standing. It withstood the storm. Nothing on this freaking island withstood the storm. Here's a perfectly good structure, and the government is making them take it down. It's ludicrous. I understand that.
And there's a difference. I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not a bureaucrat by training. I'm not a bureaucrat by temperament. But they have a set of rules, and they make those rules very specific. So it's hard to game the system. If you make them loose, people will game the system. I'm an engineer, and I look at it and say, we just had a Cat 4.9 storm that came through, and my garage is in perfect shape.
Why do I have to take down a garage that's in perfect shape?
You don't get that kind of empirical test very often in engineering. If you build a bridge and it falls down, that's not a good thing. But
it's just sometimes common sense gets thrown out the window for rules. And I get it. You have to follow the rules, because another storm 10 years from now, 15 years from now can come through, and you don't want to have people going through the same stuff that they're going through now. I get it.
And one of the things that both Rick and I agree to, it seems like really the problem came up with how those structures were allowed to be permitted in the first place. Both of us thought we were doing what was up to code because it was approved, because we got our certificate of occupancy. But it's this loophole where it's a lower standard if you're doing a lateral addition than it is if you're building a new structure.
And how did that not where does the blame, but how did that happen that this situation occurred, that you were allowed to build something that now in hindsight looks like you shouldn't have been allowed to build? Is that?
Well, if I had that degree of hindsight, I would have taken more of my stuff out of my house before it got washed away. So,
come on, Bill, what were you thinking back there? I mean, geez.
Yeah. So I
don't think it's on the homeowner to know that, right?
Well,
I mean,
my builder didn't know. Rick's builder didn't know. I mean, it's a scenario that a storm's going to come and completely wipe out your house and leave your garage. We built our garage to withstand storms. We could put old photos and papers and that kind of stuff up there, and not have to, and food and water in case something like this happened. But we thought we would just be without power and mucking out the house, not have nothing.
Yeah. So, Bill, well, while we have you here, I mean, we see these developments coming up now, and it's really going to be interesting to watch over the next year, 5 years, whatever. I mean, we had the CEO from London Bay on who bought the Outrigger property. It seems like the LPA and the town council are standing firm on the way the LDC and the comprehensive plan are now, but it also seems like people are going to be asking for more. What do you think is going to happen? What is your view on how all this plays out?
You know, I'm 1 in 5. And I'm not going to talk too much about my opinions because we'll be talking about this in town council to come. I would personally like to see the town council manage expectations a little better, because right now, until it comes in front of council, we're really not talking about it. And everyone is meeting individually with some of these developers, and they're pitching to individual councilors. So I don't know what John thinks. I don't know what Karen and the mayor
there's a
think.
reason for that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that would be a clear violation of the sunshine laws. I do know what people who talk to me think, and people who are on your website commenting think about these big developments. And I know we did a survey during the town hall where it was overwhelming that a density should only be allowed either never or if there's significant public benefit. But almost no one thought that to make someone's project economically feasible
that's a lot of the pitch. That is a lot of what you're hearing from the developers. But even Anita said the public benefit really doesn't play in that much. The rules are the rules. And, you know, even Mark said last night, the town is reworking their comprehensive plan. And I was like, not really. I mean, not to the point where you can get 13 stories, or, I mean, I'm just throwing that number out there, but they're not reworking it that much.
Right. Now, we're obligated to go through and revisit our comprehensive plan periodically by state law. So it's not like we're doing it for the hurricane. We're working on this before. But to me, the biggest hole in the plan is in the commercial, like especially the commercial boulevard, the small scale to commercial development. I've seen a lot of those lots for sale. They don't seem to be moving. I don't think people, maybe they have expectations. They're waiting to see what town council is going to do. But I would like to see the town council come up with a really good formula for encouraging mixed use in some of those that includes housing and commercial. And I think that's one thing I've talked about. Is not just pink zones, but it's also lean urbanism. And by lean urbanism, it means you come up with a template and you say, okay, if you do A, B, and C, you'll get D, E, and F. And then if you stay within that template, you don't need to hire a planner. You don't need to hire an attorney. You don't need to get a variance. You can just do your project within that template. So it becomes a business decision by those owners saying, am I going to do this, or am I want so much more that it makes sense for me to pay for all that, to take a chance and go for the town council?
Are you worried that we won't see any new construction in some of those empty spots now, or are those empty spots okay? I've talked to people who say, hey, I see more of the beach now than I've ever seen before. It's not my fault somebody spent $38.2 million on a piece of property that's going to be blank soon.
Well, yeah, we're not, I don't feel any particular obligation to make someone's investments pay off.
Right.
If that's the case, then I have some stocks I bought back in the 80s that I would like to recoup some of the losses on. So,
right. I mean, but does it worry you at all that you might not see some of the buildings built or not?
There's a lot of reasons why people aren't building yet. With me, I lost 6 months trying to save the garage. Right. So I don't even have a design for a house now. We have a tentative design. We're starting to work on it, but it's going to be a while. It's gonna be a while for us. I have a next door neighbor who she's just waiting. So she's cleared her lot. She's just kind of waiting to see what happens with the town. And she's had that lot for like 50 years.
Does it worry you at all about the number of people that's on the easements?
Not particularly. I think that, I know there are some people, and they've been very vocal, that they're an absolute no, and they communicate with the town that for whatever reason, they don't want to sign the easement. A lot of people is they don't think they really need to make any kind of move. They're apathetic about it.
Or they're maybe going to sell their property
things,
or worrying about their house and the whole thing.
Yeah.
You've been more outspoken than most town council members about Times Square. What's going on there?
No idea. I come up with and I want to bring in front of council. I can think of 5 or 6 different scenarios, and none of them are really particularly appealing, because what everyone really wants.
Wait a minute. You're coming up with 5 or you're
not one of them can be appealing, Bill?
Well, because what I
But
really
do you mean,
want,
like appealing to who?
What do
Like,
I
'cause
really
they're
want?
appealing to you.
what I really want is the old Times Square back.
Yeah.
Because it had that casualness. It was on the ground level, people walking to and from the beach, outdoor cafes, action. You know, that was a really unique thing that I would like to be able to get that back. But I just, you know, some of the, I know there one talk is saying if they're willing sellers, then we use one of these programs that will buy the property and just leave it as a park or you know, natural space. One of the problems of those is that they have to do a cost benefit analysis, and the cost of the property makes it a difficult sell for that kind of money.
Yeah.
Another idea is kind of like what we have now. Maybe we institutionalize food trucks. You know, put dining areas, put food trucks there. Now I know Tom Alaola, he's been over backwards to get what he had.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a really good journey for him.
No, it was painful. It was
Yeah.
painful to
Yeah.
finally get there. So is there any committee that's been
What's
organized?
another one
or-
of your ideas?
Yeah, that's only 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
Well, another one, I mean, the thing that they proposed with putting a big seawall that would essentially make it into an A zone so they could build things at ground level.
Oh, wow.
You know, the V zone, you're very limited.
Yeah.
Ground below flood, you're only allowed parking and access, so stairs and cars. But I'm not really, after seeing this storm, and one structure could cause all this scouring. And if you put a half a mile long wall, whoever's at the end of that wall, if another storm happens, is
They're
going
gonna
to be
get it.
totally screwed.
There's just no good answer for Times Square right
Yeah.
now. You got all the business owners, and some of them aren't even cleaning up their shit. I mean, I was over there in the, you know, that spot by the pier. They're not taking responsibility for their own spots. And I don't know what the reason is, but it's 10 months later, and there's rebar sticking out of the ground. I
Right.
mean, it's like the prime welcome center for Fort Myers Beach, and it just seems like some of those business owners don't care. And I love business owners, but it just seems like clean up your mess over there.
Well, you know, if they don't have their business, maybe there's not a motivation to go through and clean it up.
Well,
Sense of
and I don't
community.
know where their
Sense of community
insurance
doesn't get.
You know, I don't know what the financial circumstances for the owners are, but they probably took a huge hit.
Yeah.
You know, and they're probably not looking for a place to spend money without a return.
I see.
Yeah. On the other end, you know, probably the Cadillac of it was to try to build the entire Times Square up to flood.
Yeah.
Make a boardwalk up there. When the county does a pier, attach the pier to it, attach the restrooms from Lynn Hall Park at elevation, and maybe try to get a parking
Wow, that's a
garage
lot of
on the
boardwalk.
other side.
Yeah.
And build an overpass so you go from parking without going through the street right up to the high level. I don't know how well that would work, and it costs a lot more money than we have.
Some folks have been asking me to ask you about why permits are needed for gravel. Anything you want to say about that?
Well, okay.
We know there's one story that everybody's been hearing about of
I
somebody.
hear a lot. It's one of the biggest things that comes up across our emails. Now, just as an example, the first house we had here was a rental house on Coconut Drive. The next door neighbor put in a pool, which lifted up their backyard by like 4 or 5 inches. Next time it rained, all the water dammed between our rental house and that pool, and our backyard flooded more often. So the problem with fill is you protect your property, but
At
you
the
affect your
expense of-
neighbors.
Mhm.
And so that's why the rules are as they are. Now, a lot of people are, you know, they figure, well, I'm just filling in scour, right? I'm just putting it to the height there was, but without any kind of permit, there's no way for the town to really know. Now, I will say that one thing that really came out of my conversation this morning with Mr. Lowry is that there is a perception that some town staff have developed an adversarial relationship with some members of the public. And I think that's something that I think Andy's on the right track, and some of the things he's saying that can be improved upon. I know there used to be a program in town hall where they would give everyone a free half an hour. You would come in with what your plans are, sit down with the planner, and they basically tell you what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Instead of having you go through, because I know it's a real ordeal to go through and work with a contractor, pay thousands of dollars for plans, get them all buttoned up, and take them in and find out there's a fundamental flaw.
Right.
You know, one thing I know in my engineering is the sooner you make the changes in the process, the cheaper they are. If you've got the detailed plans and you got to make changes, that becomes expensive. So I think there's some things we could do, and maybe they're doing it, but I haven't seen it, where we can maybe have a more casual start to a project where people go in, have a chance to talk. If they want to add fill, they learn what they have to do before they add fill, things like that.
Well, I think that's what he was saying. It goes a long way to improving the customer service. Like that's one of his big goals is to improve customer service and relations with with
The public.
with the residents.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll tell you, I've never seen an example in my business career where too much communication was a problem. It's always the opposite.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't know. I mean, especially they want to try to do a build by owner and they really are not familiar with it. I've done simple projects by owner and it's difficult.
So, Bill, Andy rated the permitting at a 6. What is your rating? 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. About how you think the Fort Myers Beach
And the
permitting?
room just went silent.
No. I mean,
Well,
it's the biggest thing. It's the
Oh, I
biggest.
saw.
It's the biggest thing people talk about. It's the permitting.
honestly, I don't know. I hear examples where people are very happy and they've got their permits quick.
Yep.
A lot of them have worked with maybe contractors who know the town and know how to work through the town. Other people seem to be banging their head against the wall, and I just don't know. I have not surveyed every permit out there to get an impression.
Will you announce today that you're running for re-election next year?
I think it's a little premature.
Are you going to run, or have you made that?
I
He
think
just
it's
said it's
a little
premature.
Well, I mean, I remember a conversation you and I had that said 4 years was a little longer than you want it to be, but that was before the storm. So you're considering it, it sounds like.
Well, when I ran, it was just because of the big projects were the
That's right.
the big 3 projects, and they were
Which one, nobody even remembers what
Yeah.
they are.
and they were
anymore.
a formidable bite of the apple. And
Yeah.
now, like you said,
It's a whole different ballgame.
right. And talking to Andy, he has some ideas. It's also good to get someone fresh in because he's not married to anything we've done in the past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We have paid for a design for Bay Oaks, but the idea of if you put Town Hall and Bay Oaks together somehow, then you can have one desk. You can have
Yeah.
one person on the front desk. So you save some labor costs.
Yeah.
Management is a little easier. There's things we can do that, thinking outside the box with a new guy may be a good idea.
And so you're not opposed to running again. You're not closing the door.
He's not making a decision
Here.
right now.
I'm trying to make him a little bit uncomfortable. He's
Well,
not
you're doing
closing
it.
the door.
Well, I'm going to go home and talk to my wife, and then I'll probably be uncomfortable.
He's got to get his house figured out
But,
too.
Bill, what do you want to tell the residents about? It's coming up on a year. I mean, it's going to be crazy emotional on September 28th. For you, for so many people for everybody on this island, there's going to be people down here covering it that don't give a shit the other 11 months and 30 days out of the year. And
Yeah.
what do you want to tell people
Well,
on the island?
But it is, when people do come and cover it, I try to give them as much time as possible because it's important for us to keep in the national conversation, because that's where the money comes from that can help us rebuild. If it wasn't for that, we'd be in trouble. I understand that for some people, things are going really slow, and you can blame the town, but I get more complaints about insurance
Yes,
Mhm.
for sure.
than I do in towns. And I don't have a problem with insurance. I didn't have insurance. I'm still, now is it 10 months later? And I'm just now working on plans, so but I'll tell you a good story, maybe way to close out. I have a great neighborhood, and I know most people on the island will say the same thing.
Yep.
That it's really we are like a chain of little tiny
Yes,
towns,
yes.
little tiny communities up and down the island. And we used to do progressive dinner parties. We go from house to house to house. And they're just really fun. We did one after the storm where our first event was at a house that was back to studs. The second was someone who had a deck but no house.
Right.
The third one actually had a house and a bathroom. It was important to have that in the middle. And then a person who had a state trailer and a little deck they built, and then my house. And we had probably 25 people.
Yep.
And you could not find a happier group of people. on
You
the
need
island.
that bonding.
We
for sure.
just absolutely loved each other, and getting together was a huge accomplishment. I am hoping that all the people that are close to other people on the island, that the fabric of this community, can find a way to make it work and rebuild within their budget and stay on the island.
Thank you,
Ladies
so
and gentlemen,
much.
Councilman Bill Veach, a great asset to Fort Myers Beach. Thanks for coming on, Bill. We appreciate your time. All right, everybody, before we wrap things up, we need to tell you about that guy sitting right over there, Jorge Barrera. Relax, all right? Relax. Jorge's got success stories up and down this island. And I wish I would have printed this one out just a little bit bigger. I need some kind of... Amy Bain from Miramar Street says, Jorge was over the top amazing. Wait, did she write this or did you write this? Oh, she did. I'm kidding. Very responsive, trustworthy, hardworking, and extremely good looking. Oh, no, wait. Knowledgeable, sorry, about what is going on on the beach. We had a challenging, unique set of circumstances, and he handled them like an expert. Give Jorge Barrera a call if you want to sell, if you want to buy. 239-791-9893. And he's here all the time. Thank you, Jorge, for being a part of our little dinky podcast here. We appreciate that. We are not going to be here next Saturday because we're going to be in Wisconsin. We're going to be doing a show at Tanner's Grill in Kimberly, Wisconsin. Imagine that. Kimberly, Wisconsin on my wife's birthday next Saturday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock is when the show is going to be. And for those of you that have been watching our Facebook page, I did delete the 7:30 video. I'm not going to tell you why. You can try and text me. You can try and call me. But I am not. If you watched it and you saw what happened, then you were unlucky that you saw what happened. And we apologize for what happened. But I'm never going to tell that story again, and sober anyway. So the other thing is, if you're going to register for our day before Labor Day 5K, which is, Marie, the day before Labor Day, you want to sign up as soon as you can because we're ordering the shirts this week, and we want to make sure we get your size. So you can go on our website. I moved the registration link to the top of beachtalkradionews.com. Register as soon as you can so we can get those shirts. The run's going to be entirely out on the beach from Diamond Head south on the nice white sand, and then we're going to do the ceremony inside in the air-conditioned ballroom of the Diamond Head. So that's coming up the day before Labor Day. And, of course, our one-year anniversary show will be here on September 28th. The entire show will be interviews with survivors of the storm, folks that have stayed on the beach during the storm. And we're going to talk about their experiences. We're also working on something for the families of those that lost their lives in the storm. So stay tuned for information on that. Monday night's show with the mayor is going to be at Diamond Head at 5 o'clock. So stop on down and have a drink. 5 o'clock Monday at Diamond Head. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for coming. See you Monday.